Wow. So good. It's been a while. It's been a while. And we're so excited to be back here on the Earth Heroes platform and talking to you about some of what we've been up to at Brave New Life. And many of you have been tuning into our adventures as we've been kind of traveling around both online in the internet world and in person. So we just came back from, or I just came back from an adventure in Texas and North Carolina and hooked up with you, River, because you're working on some properties and the different people that are reaching out to Haven Earth as far as looking at some of the bio design. And we wanted to talk about the upcoming workshop. We wanted to talk about these land activations. We wanted to talk about the Church of Syntropy, right, Sovereign? Are we like kind of announcing that behind the scenes conversation? Maybe give people a little teaser.
Well, there's a lot of really beautiful things going on behind the scenes that a lot of people would be probably curious to know about. And one of them is this lovely fantasy that we have, that there is a church, and the church is Syntropy. And I think it's a beautiful subject, and it's nice to play around with it, and that could bring up some things for people, and that is fine, because it's really healthy to redefine how we relate to our existence here on the earth, and how we engage in a sacred and an intentional manner with life. And so I just see that we got a thumbs up for that. So that's beautiful.
Yay. Well, you know, everything that we've done since we've embarked on our own Brave New Lives has been very organic and syntropic. And when you started really sharing what I call this love language of syntropy with me last year, when we started working on the New Earth things, it resonated in my cells, right? And as truth. And I love how you talk about syntropy as the bridge between these worlds, between the timelines, between the old paradigm and the new earth that we're birthing. And along the journey, we've met incredible people, other mammals, like as you like to call them, River being one of them. And he's there in North Carolina with Christina and Abby, who we're bringing into this land activation with this Vastu, wisdom. And so we'll talk a little bit about that. But I've literally met so many people from our community, hundreds of you that I've gotten to meet in person, hug, and do this feeling-based relating, which is the infrastructure on how we're going to build these external community, the communities on the external. So a lot of the conversations we've been having in our Zooms, which we do weekly. So I put up the the website. So if you want to get on our mailing list for our community conversations that we host weekly, twice a week on Zoom, just join that mailing list. But we're also on Clubhouse on Wednesday nights at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Sent the link for that in the email, and we're recording those. We're actually, Sovereign is recording those. So it's not like the best quality, but you'll get the content, and many of you want that. So if you want this kind of juicy conversation around what we're kind of, how we're looking at building this infrastructure of community, or building community from the inside out, then tune into what we're doing. We also have, maybe you can put the link up for the podcast, Sovereign, where they can get this, because we've done a lot of interviews. We had one with River and Christina a couple of weeks ago, where we're going to bring Evan. We have so many incredible people that we're bringing into the conversation, and always just a shout out for Earth Heroes. We're so grateful for our connection with our beautiful brother Shay, who has, is hosting our conversations on the platform and delivering a lot of great content. I know we have the one coming up with Bruce Lipton, and then there's another film we have coming up. So there's a lot happening. But the real behind the scenes inner circle that we just mastermind brain whatever this morning is like the inner circle conversations of the private conversations we're having as we actually really logistically build out the infrastructure around this Church of Syntropy, and how this may beautifully trigger people, and like then invite them to actually have the courage to live their brave new life. So do you want to say a little bit about the Clubhouse, any of those events coming up? I know these are all like timely, and then we'll dive into River's event in San Diego.
Yes, well, people that feel any curiosity should just get on the mailing list, and I want to listen to River.
Okay. So River, tell us about the upcoming, well, we're doing a Brave New Life on Friday the 23rd, where it's going to be a community event, but you're doing the Hempel workshop on Saturday, Sunday, the April 24th, 25th. So you want to share a little bit about that?
Yay. Thanks, Sovereign.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's exciting. I'm here in North Carolina with Christina and Abby. We've been working on kind of pulling in the strands of the conceptual side of this project, how we're coming to that land in San Diego. It's about 10 acres of land. And, you know, the owner, who's a friend of ours, who's through Brave New Life community, and Craig, you know, as some people might already know, he's a lawyer specializing in cannabis plant for some years now. So this beautiful crossover with just what we're all doing with the plant as a real change maker, as a real connector at these times. Its time is now, you know, its time has come. And we're really bringing in the energy of this plant, and then consciously creating with the energies of these ancient principles that are not some arbitrary kind of set of rules, but rather a living doctrine of nature's expression, and the energetics that are coming through and charging this planet through the cosmos, and how, you know, these forms have come from the human form. I mean, they are a replication of the divinity of the human form, and these forms that are replicable in nature, and how to bring that down into a structure that creates this bioresonance with the earth, and for all those that inhabit it or that pass through it, you know, it's literally radiate these temples. I mean, in India, and obviously Christian and Abby can speak more to this, but you know, they're literally putting an anchor in, and then they're radiating out this frequency, and they would, you know, plan their whole cities around these structures. They would be the center of the city. They would mark this energetic portal, and then they would set their city in alignment with the, you know, the north-south axis and all these things. And you know, they were using, and you know, the materiality element of it is just as important as in terms of, you know, not to use certain materials, but to, you know, use specific materials, and they would carve them, you know, they would make them out of granite and other materials like this. The great thing now is we have hemp, which we can grow in pretty much any location, and it has its own frequency. And because we're mixing the hemp herd, which is the core of the plant, the core of the stalk of the plant, which does all the work really to take the nutrients up from the soil, and has its own filtration process. You know, we're benefiting from that when we use it in our structures, because it has them properties to be a filter. And then when we mix it with lime, hydrated lime, rather than cement, which is highly processed version of lime, we use like a hydrated lime, which is low processing. It's still very alive. We activate it with water and some minerals like porcelain binders, basically, which are just binders from, you know, brick and other things that help to speed up that process of drying, curing. But what's happening is we're essentially making a limestone structure, infused with a plant. So, you know, it's going back to that state, and limestone was one of the most, you know, a really high frequency material to use in building, you know, so we don't have to go through the process of etching and carving and digging out of the earth this limestone in big blocks and you know, making these structures. We're literally creating a process where we can form these structures. And this one we're planning in San Diego to basically do a 2-day workshop where people will get that experience of putting the forms around the frame that we're going to construct, and they'll get to infill the hemp into these forms and really understand that process of how that's possible. Because for some people, they look at it like, they see this stuff in the mix and it looks like oatmeal or something. It doesn't necessarily look like a building material. You feel like you could eat it.
So I'm going to send you pictures of me building this hemple.
And you know, and then by the end of this weekend, we'll start on Saturday. We'll do some obviously educational side and get people the understanding of why we're working with hemp and the properties and all these great things. And then we'll erect some of the frame and elements. And then on the Sunday, we're bringing in Hemp Ecosystems, Tony from Hemp Ecosystems, they are Jürgen Hempel from Switzerland. He created this formula.
Isn't it amazing that Christina had the idea for the Hemples, and there's the person that's named Hempel.
Yeah, his last name's Jürgen. Well, his last name's Hempel, and he's like 85 years old, and he pioneered this back in the 80s. Of how to create these binders that would speed the process up, so we don't need to use cement, so we can use lime. And now actually we're just chatting last night, and they're looking to basically open the door to their patent, so they don't have any. They're going to release their patent to the public. So there's
the patent.
Okay. Patent.
Okay. I love our diversity. It's great.
Yeah, it's going to be super exciting. I think people will really get a lot from the experience. And there's obviously, as you know, Sovereign, there's something else that comes from these experiences of coming together for like some common purpose and learning and kind of immersing in that experience that breaks down some of the barriers that we have, especially right now. So I feel like, it's going to be a great opportunity for people to come together.
I just want to jump in, River, because I think when we were kind of envisioning the idea of the structure, like the organizational structure of how we're all coming together and offering these services and building out these communities, because we know we can't do it the way that it's been done before. And so we're all very committed to this process. And it is a process. We're discovering this together. We were in Texas and hanging out with Renette and Dell and Mickey and all of them, and a lot of the individuals that I'm in the mastermind conversation with, Eric Napute and Andy Kaufman, are actively looking at these other structures, right? These other kinds of business structures that go with outside of what we now define as this, the way that we build our businesses or build our communities. So what's really interesting is that part of the workshops that we're going to be creating are going to be including that discovery process that we're in. And so I want, a lot of people are reaching out. There's Kismet just mentioned, like she has 17 acres in South Carolina. If people want to reach out to you, if people have land, people are looking for community, it's almost like we're becoming this, matchmaker.
Clearinghouse.
Yeah, a clearinghouse, right? This consortium. So people can get in touch with you. I put it in there, but it's havenearth.org. And you can register for the workshop there, but they can also reach out to you if they have projects that they want to work on. There are a lot of people that are, reaching out that have pieces of land and different things that are coming forward. And it's a beautiful process that we're all kind of embarking on. And I think a lot of people are sharing this same vision. I think many of us, I had this download for community, almost 30 years ago when my first daughter was born. So I feel like we're all showing up as we all speak in the right moment, that this is what we're
doing. It's like that the starlings, right? When they all move together, it's like we're all in that wave, right. Kind of flowing and following these currents and patterns that are shifting us into this way. I think the build element of it is, it's kind of like the epoch of the manifestation, where we're really seeing that in form. And for me, like my new keyword is nature informs. But literally, it informs, but it's informs. Whether it's the human vessel or whether it's a structure we built, and how we kind of speak to that in the language of nature rather than just this language of Home Depot or the regular building industry and all of these systems that have been put in place to make manufacturing easy. And I think it's about how do we get back to what's important, and then we utilize what's there to make that happen, rather than what's there, what can I build out of that?
Right.
And with hemp, we get a really good opportunity of that, because we can put it into forms, and it can be in any shape. So we're going to build a dome, which is going to be really interesting.
Can you show your picture of you're working on it? So I mean, we are like the new Earth architect. I love it. We're like the new Earth architect. Oh,
this is like a Vastu drawing, but it represents like kind of the floor plans that were, the principles that Abby and Christina are bringing through. And these are all principles, but like how to bring them up to date, how to kind of acknowledge what's there. But we're doing these new types of projects that are, Abby has a great story about, like how the culture goes so far back that, it's talking about these builder gods that came down and give us this language so we could basically energetically activate the planet. And he's from the lineage of temple builders.
It's so amazing how we are
literally being called back to do this work again, but with new materials.
New metric, this new Earth metric. I mean, we talk about like between you and Sovereign, and I'm in the middle of you two. I have like the new Earth architects and the new Earth doulas, midwives. Like we're like birthing this new Earth, and it's so incredible. And these are the times that we were literally designed to be here for. Like we're showing up completely on purpose, as Zach Bush always reminds us. So yeah, Sovereign, you want to share a little bit? And love that design.
Yeah. I want to see it again and see if we can actually pull it up properly. There we go.
Nice.
I mean, this is just a sketch and an artwork, but it's based on the principles. And once we understand these principles, and how we transpose them into different ways, elevations, other things.
What about the other photo? The one, I know you're just working on it. I'm putting you on the spot, but like, and he's such an amazing architect. He said it was going to be 15 feet on the ground. I'm like, it's going to be floating in the air. No.
Yeah. It's like in Avatar movie, they have these floating islands. But we have a meeting tonight with Craig, who's the landowner in San Diego, who's going to do this project. So we're kind of pulling together everything now. We've been working intensely for the last few days to bring them guys to bring all the dimensions, the scale, me to look at the practical side of that, of actually how we're going to build that. Especially in a workshop. So the way it's looking is I'm going to go there a week early so I can build the foundation and create the framing. So when everybody comes for the workshop, they don't have to do all of that stuff, which I don't think is what they're necessarily coming to learn. Although they'll get to see it, and the skeleton of this beautiful body that's going to exist in that land.
I want to speak to a minute to the Hemple and these as like generators on the land, and that the activation of being in this kind of space, because Christina is not on but describes it so well. Like literally when you're in this space physically, the alignment that happens with our bodies. And there's one of the Clubhouse, I think you recorded it, Sovereign, where she really eloquently described her own experience. And we should definitely put that out in the next email of it's like what you're talking about, River, like being completely one with nature, like being in a physical form where you're actually you're like the channel, right? The conduit that's the conduit to allow us to connect to the cosmos. And what happens with that, and bringing in other people like Donna, who's like an incredible healer, visionary here, literally works with vision in San Diego, who will be there also. That is having visions of doing this healing work in these kind of activation generators or healing. They're like healing temples. And the fact that it's hemp and it's like livable, breathable. We're in this like living system. I'm so excited to actually experience being in this and be part of this workshop. We will have our Brave New Life community gathering for the public on Friday, where people will be networking and having a freedom potluck and literally being on the land to activate it, because it is one of the PowerPoint days in the Vastu. Sovereign, I don't know if you knew this, but there's like 8 days, right, that are like powerful in the Vedic tradition. And that day is one of the days that we're doing the activation when we picked the date, literally lined up. So we're going to do a private kind of puja to do this and build like a little, mini something puja on the land. And then we'll invite everybody else to come into that. So we'll be documenting it. But if you're in the area or you want to get in the area, people are going to be like tenting on the land, and we'll be just in community for these 2 days. It's going to be really beautiful. It's limited to 20 people. If you
Workshop
feel
is limited, right?
the workshop, the Friday's open to everyone, but the workshop's limited to 20 people. So that's going to be, that's the invitation. So if you want to join us, reach out to River at info@havenearth.org. And yeah, this is just the first though. We're looking at different lands in North Carolina that these activation temples, and we're really honing in on Austin, Texas, where we're setting up our business and connecting with a lot of it. So there's so much coming through. And then obviously we're going to be in Mexico together at an immersion. And at some point we're going to entice Sovereign to come over and join us in these adventures. But in the meantime, we're going to stream him in and still be in both timelines, the internet and the real live life in person. But we'll be doing that. We'll be in Mexico for 2 weeks in Trancones, where we'll also have a piece of land that we're looking to activate. So if that's something that any of this is something that you want to tune into, get on our mailing list at bravenewlife.net. Sovereign, do you want to close us out? Anything that you want to add?
I feel really nice. Yes. What I feel is relevant and why this constellation between us is so flowing organically, effortlessly, with beauty in the way that we find these humans with these amazing gifts finding each other, is that we have started from the inside out. And I really like how River sort of brought that syntax through for me to relate to my own experience in this, is that we started with feeling-based relating, and the foundational premise of our common ground is syntropy, which is the study of nature, which is the willful engagement to become openly curious as to how life operates. And so that causes us to suspend our own thinking and programming and all of that in order to become again informed by the life ways of nature. And through the study of syntropic agroforestry, which is a very honed in and articulate way of coming into real comprehension of the strategies that life operates on, we are able to distill and access an innate knowing that actually lives in all of us right from the get-go. Because we, it's my favorite hashtag. I have a few, but this is definitely the one, and I'm going to just type it in here because I love doing that. We are syntropy. And so when humans can connect with this underlying, long forgotten way of relating to life, because now there is language for it, we drop a whole bunch of irrelevant overuse and misuse of the intelligence, and we can connect again on that spirit to spirit, heart to heart level. And the bioresonance fields that we then start operating from, with what we've cultivated in Brave New Life, Imani and I starting that out together, for me, I was very clear in the beginning to disengage from the traditional ways of navigating. I call them business as usual, to do as much in the beginning to kind of vilify our own so-called brand, because it never was a brand. This is your Brave New Life. This is our brave. This is my Brave New Life. And everybody that comes into that space becomes invited to actually curiously consider that proposition for themselves, and their cells actually start well, there's a recognition from within that this is not something that you can follow. Yeah, of course, connect in with who we are, what we do, and the inspiration that we beam out, because we've cultivated most of our lives to end up here and be ready to be a sounding board and an expression of this consciousness. And I have explored this now for so many years in terms of social permaculture, in terms of human ecology. and the intergenerational and the transgenerational life ways that we as humans really benefit remembering, that would allow us to actually live in this so-called new earth fantasy that everybody feels really good about. And so it's about bringing that dream, that vision down into a digestible but also an experientiable language. And the metaphors therefore have to be based on the existing life patterns in nature. And when they are that, and the reason they have to be, because otherwise they're just spiritual fantasies, and our cellular metric can't actually recognize the organic nature of what we are trying to relate to through our mind song. But when we bring our perceptions and our experiences and our metaphorical allegories, when we bring that languaging into the organic and syntropic nature of life, then all of a sudden our communication becomes way more succinct and we can move way faster, because we're not having to kind of like, yeah, it's kind of like that, and it's like that, and it's like this, and you know, when you have that, it's like that. It's no, I feel and I sense, and when I have these feelings, I can recognize these feelings as a pattern in nature. Now that's powerful, because now we're dealing with a living metric that others can, through the language of images that we kind of cast when we relate with each other, we can actually sense and feel that. And something happens in our own biology that makes us feel more connected and more authentically in relationship with each other through the way that we are actually using language. And so with everything that we do, bringing syntropy in there is such a relevant, it's the bridge and it's the missing link. And I'm very excited, because what I feel, what we are carrying and what is being accumulated in this accumulation phase that we're in, is going to bring in, let's put it this way, what we are speaking to and what we are activating is going to resonate not just with the layman person, because it's not some spiritual fluff or hoo-ha. It's actually grounded and it's real, and any layman person can relate to it, because we all can relate to nature, because we are syntropy. But what it's going to do, it's going to bring in those voices that have already been speaking for decades, but they weren't necessarily really heard for one reason or the other. And they are going to come in, and what's going to happen is we're going to cause an amplification of transformation, because we're not just bringing the dream, we're not just bringing the language, we're also gathering the people that know how to navigate the implementation and the manifestation based on these ideal feeling-based sensations of what that new earth actually looks like. And
Yay!
that's what we're doing.
I love it, Sovereign. Beautiful. So we're supposed to be in our
Amen.
room.
Amen.
Amen. See, this is why. This is the sermons. This is the sermons that we're going to share with you when we roll out our inner circle. These are the kinds of juicy conversations we're having behind the scene, and it's so cellularly nourishing. So love you both so much. I'm so grateful to be on this journey with you. We're supposed to be in a Zoom room 1 minute ago. People are waiting for us. I put the link in there. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. If you want more of this yumminess, go to bravenewlife.net. We'll see you on the other side. Bye, everyone.
Love ya.
Love ya.
Yay. Let's see.